Things I wish I knew before I became an adult. You can learn a lesson in 20 minutes or 20 years. I made these mistakes so you wouldn't have to. This is the modern Bedouin's take on the things that we're too afraid to talk about. Saudi Arabia's youth is a powerful and optimistic group, with 63% of the Saudi population below the age of 30. The impact of the next generation on the kingdom is surely to go down in history. A study done from Vice Media Group surveyed 22,600 young people across the world and found that it was undeniable that young people globally can't help but feel worried about the future. However, what we found most interesting was the optimism in Saudi youth. It was double that of the global average. A lot of this optimism can be attributed to Vision 2030. Saudi Arabia entering a new era of innovation, enterprise, and openness. The kingdom is also shaping up to be one of the most critical Gen Z and Gen Alpha markets in the world, and the next generation intends on entering adulthood with their own flair. In a quote from Alvaro Bertel, head of strategy at Vice Media Group, said, "Saudi youth are deeply connected to where they come from and refuse to steer away from it. But at the same time, they want to inject this heritage with their own signature, fueled by the optimism and momentum of today. It's evident we have a large group of influential youth ready to make their mark on the world. But it begs the question, are they prepared?" The famous show Friends and other urban-themed Western TV shows often portray everyone living in perpetual bliss in their 20s. But this media illusion is a far cry from the reality that many young people face. A 2014 study from the Boston Consulting Group showed that a majority of Saudi Arabian youth generally lack the education and technical skills that the private sector needs. We live in a system where education emphasizes memorization rather than learning to solve the problem at hand. And although the Ministry of Education has been pumping significant investments into the education system over the past decade, 20-year-olds being unprepared for the workforce is not a concept unique to Saudi Arabia alone. In fact, this concept is one that many young people all over the world struggle with. So, how do we harness this power of this group that is seemingly bursting with potential? And what do they need to know to adult successfully? Prioritizing the right things in your 20s can alter the course of a young person's entire life. Like in the book, The Defining Decade by Meg Jay, our 20s are the time to design and work on the life we want to live for the rest of our life. Similar to how preparing ingredients for a meal, chopping up the vegetables can take half an hour, but cooking and plating can only take 5 minutes, our 20s can be tiresome, but it is the necessary preparation time for that vision. And when it comes to developing the problem-solving skills highly sought after by employers, commitment is key. Said commitment does not have to be for life, but it is important to preserve for a certain amount of time before quitting. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York economists studied the career path of about 5 million workers over nearly 40 years and reported that the bulk of earnings growth happens during the first 10 years of employment. Not giving up so quickly can pay dividends. Patience is also key. In your early 20s, your brain is still developing. The prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for high-level cognitive processing, emotional regulation, and impulse control, is slowly but surely oiling its gears and honing in on its craft. Just because you turned 18 does not mean you will suddenly have it all figured out, nor should you. And although your parents may not be as actively involved in your everyday life, it does not mean there isn't a need for you to parent yourself. All parents do their best. No parents are perfect. Young adulthood is your opportunity to learn to set your own boundaries and fill in any gaps your parents may have missed, rather than blame them for it. According to psychotherapist Sharon Martin, resiliency, boundary setting, accountability, and emotional regulation are often the areas most neglected in childhood. Taking time to assess what areas you need to improve in and investing that time in learning about yourself can do wonders for your quality of life and further your ability to reach your goals. The future is bright for the next generation of Saudi Arabia. And with realistic expectations, the journey to adulthood is full of ups and downs. perseverance, and the willingness to take accountability, there's no telling what this next generation will create, invent, and develop.